General Lee had determined the first 2 days that the Union was very strong on its left and right flanks, so that to him it meant it was a weaker point in the center. And they determined the battle plan would be to attack the center. And you could see off in the distance possibly an obelisk, maybe the Pennsylvania Monument, a very large dome structure. In amongst that is what was the famous copse of trees. The modern day version does sit over there, and the angle, the bloody angle, was the focal point of where they wanted to attack. So Lee had Longstreet hadn't been used, and specifically under Longstreet was Pickett, who had not been used at all in this battle the first 2 days. So he assigned Pickett, as well as some others, to assault that point over there. And it was about a mile across from here over to there. But before the attack, they started an artillery barrage. It actually was the largest barrage in North America. Over 150 Confederate cannons against a little over 100 Union cannons back and forth for about 2 hours. And the Union guns then went silent after about 2 hours. So the Confederate artillery commander decided that meant they were weak, and this was the time to attack. So he gave a nod to Longstreet, Longstreet nodded to Pickett and said, "Go ahead." And Pickett started his assault across this mile stretch. So here I am on Seminary Ridge at the Virginia Monument, where Lee sits atop his horse Traveler. And off in my front and now in my rear as I'm turning, you'll see where Pickett went across a mile of open fields. Off in the distance you'll see Cordoli Farm, the red farm there, Pennsylvania Monument to its right. And to the left you'll see an obelisk. And just a little left of that, those higher trees, is the famous copse of trees. And there's another monument maybe just a little bit to the left. That is where the angle, the bloody angle, was. But that's where Pickett's charge had focused, on the copse of trees, and the artillery bombardment also focused on that center area where they thought the Union was the weakest at this, on the 3rd day of July. So this is the statue for Union Overall Commander of the Potomac, General George Meade. We are here on basically the angle, copse of trees, and behind me and down the reverse slope is the Leicester House, which is where Meade had his original headquarters before he got chased from the Confederate artillery bombardment. Originally he moved across the street, across Tarrytown Road, to a barn, and that was starting to get shelled, so he moved another half mile or so down towards Powers Hill. So behind me is the infamous copse of trees, or at least the modern day version. I'm standing here in front of a indicator where Lewis Armistead fell. Confederate general did make it over the angle, by the way. Here is the angle over here, the wall that they all traversed and got as far as here. Also, you can see some of the artillery here for the Union, and stuff that people don't really pay attention to much is the caissons that supplied the ammunition, gunpowder, whatnot for the artillery. So you can see a series of caissons here directly behind it, and another 50 yards or so behind that, another set of the caissons. So Leicester House is right over there. I'm not sure if I'm pointing in the right direction, but Leicester House is over in that direction. There's the copse of trees. Again, I don't know if I'm pointing in the right direction or not. Copse of trees. Right there. Cordoli Farm. There. There it is, Cordoli Farm. Over there's the Virginia Monument. Something like that. Maybe it's over here. And that's where Pickett's charge would have come across. Here, Casey and I are on the East Cavalry Field, where Jeb Stuart tried to flank, maneuver around the Union line, try to get into the rear, right about the same time that Pickett was doing his famous charge. And I believe the intent was to try to meet in the middle. But the Union Cavalry, led by
David Gregg, General David Gregg, and under his command was another more famous name later on, was General George Armstrong Custer. Here is their monument dedicated to him and his cavalry units. But you might see there up on the monument, there's Custer's face, and Custer led a charge against the Jeb Stuart-led cavalry, and the Union cavalry was pretty weak at this point, up to this point, and they started showing that they actually were worthy adversaries to the Confederates. And here is where Custer led the 1st Michigan, basically told them to come across this field, and the Confederate cavalry is coming across this way, and they clashed right here after Custer led his 1st Michiganders. "Come on, you Wolverines," he said, and they clashed right about in this area. Saber to saber, oath to oath.